aware of some of these names that everybody is dying to get, but I can't say them. I don't have proof other than, that what this victim told me or what this victim told an attorney and
Right.
was in a deposition. So I guess I lost sight of the question there, but
Oh, well, the question was whether they've been contacted by federal authorities recently, and
well,
which
over the
might,
years, most of them have been
but not
contacted, not
recently.
all. Not in light of all of this. What there's
Yeah.
there's no active case going on. Ghislaine's in prison, and they hoped that was at least some form of justice. But if she gets out, where's the justice in that?
Yeah.
I think let's not forget, Ghislaine was not only a groomer, she was a participant as well, and she was convicted of being a participant as well. She touched some of these women sexually inappropriately. So she's a convicted sexual predator, and if she's able to get out just because she rolled over on people that were not even 100% sure she's telling the truth, I guess the question really is, what leverage does she really have, and did she really share, and can the GOJ really prove?
That's an
And are they
interesting.
really going to prove it? You know what I mean? Because we don't know what's going to happen behind closed doors, because we know right now the end game is to make this all go away for the current administration. And Democrats as well need it to kind of go away.
If the DOJ were to offer some sort of deal to Maxwell in exchange for several convictions, because that's where we're at, right? People wanted to see more people convicted, more accountability. If
Yeah.
she, Epstein's not around anymore, unless, unless some of the conspiracy theories are correct, he's not around anymore.
Yeah.
So Maxwell is really the last person that can really be a key witness and have information that could hold people accountable. From a victim perspective, if Maxwell
I don't think
was to,
that's necessarily true,
okay,
actually. I think some of these victims who were very in the weeds for a long time, not she's definitely at the top, but there are a lot of other survivors who have really good evidence, and really they have photos. I do think that they should relook at some of these people that I think have to come initially now from Maxwell. I think, but I do think there are other people that could help put them away. I don't think it's solely up to her.
right, but if she was involved, and I'm not advocating for her to have any deal whatsoever, trust me.
Yeah.
But if they were to offer her something, a shortened sentence,
Mm-hmm.
something,
Mm-hmm.
in exchange to help some of the victims with the evidence that they have, put more people in jail, would that be ever an acceptable outcome to the victims, you think, or absolutely not? It doesn't matter if nobody else goes to jail. Maxwell deserves to be in there forever. Like, what is there a range of opinions on that?
I think it could depend who you ask, but I think they would like to see the best of both worlds there. They definitely feel Maxwell needs to stay in prison, at least a majority of those 20 years. And they do feel that many other people need to be brought to justice. Even people, not just other, people under her pyramid scheme, other female groomers, other, the Johns who were trafficked to the victims. There's so many people, the house managers, people that look the other way, had to have known what was going on. There's just no doubt young women are topless, and it just, I think they really want to see her and other people, and they have for a long time. But if she gets out, it's really, even if three or four others, she's the one in many people they feel is worse than Epstein, because she was a woman. She trusted them. She used her posh, look to, charm them and kind of enrapture them and gain their trust. And then, she exploits it. And so I think many of the women I've spoken to really feel that she's worse even than some of the perpetrators, the men that they were forced to have sex with, because it's kind of expected, that's how they kind of felt. And she was worse because she set them up for it.
From a trauma-informed perspective, is there anything the DOJ or the media can do differently in handling this situation? Because, I can just imagine the way some of this information is being delivered can harm some people emotionally. I mean, is there a different approach they could take?
I just think that they feel that it's all about politics and it's not about them. And particularly with Maxwell's trial, there were four young women underage at the time that it happened, who testified. How much courage there was in that? That's totally lost. What about the other people who, helped in the lame prosecution, and there was in 2008, and that sweetheart plea deal happened. But there was more than 30 brave survivors who came forward, and now ever since then, many more have come forward, and spoken out and finally found their voice. But it just feel like it's getting squashed. So I think the conversation, in the news needs to center more around the survivors as well as just the politics, because it just, to them, it leaves a sour taste in their mouth.
I want to focus a little bit more now on Ghislaine Maxwell and in her role in all of this, because as you mentioned, like, she's a pretty central figure in a lot of the trauma that a lot of the victims have. And
Mm-hmm.
I was hoping you can share a little bit more about how central Maxwell was to Epstein's operation, not just legally, but like in terms of recruitment, control, grooming, as you mentioned. What kind of a figure was she in this world?
Well, they were partners in crime. They actually at one time in the late 80s, 90s were together, sort of, if you want to call it that, because he was always having affairs, if you will, or having sex. Basically, he needed or 3 orgasms a day, as the story goes, and as she has said, and as many other survivors have repeated that she said. And so she really was the one who was kind of at the top of the pyramid scheme. There's him and her, but there was kind of two stages of it as well. There was like the 90s, where she would drive in a car across the streets of Manhattan, and she'd drive past the private schools and talk to schoolgirls on the street. She would go to different drama schools. He was a patron of the arts. They would try to pluck girls and groom girls, and sometimes they would present as a couple and try to groom the parents. They would look for someone who was in need. So really, he and Maxwell in particular targeted girls that were so vulnerable and needed something. And this is something that most sexual predators do. The first step in the grooming process is spotting that vulnerable victim, someone who's financially disadvantaged or has already some sexual trauma in the past, maybe comes from a broken home. They have an eye for picking out someone who is in need, and they just exploit that need, and they promise them something. I can help you get that scholarship and go to college. And when you're pairing a teenage girl with a brilliant, narcissist, which both of them really are, their adolescent brain really isn't equipped to handle it or even understand or react to what was happening. And this goes on generally, at least in the 90s. The grooming was longer, a little bit longer of a period of time, most of the time. And so she was essentially feeding him, and she was so in love with him, which is fascinating, that she would do this. Like, who would bring the man that she wanted to marry so desperately, that was never ever going to marry him? She thought that if she did everything he wanted and pleased him, and pleasing him meant getting him 3 young nubiles, as she would call them, a day, to give him a sexual massage, that he was going to then like marry her. I mean, it's just beyond the scope of any, it's just, you can't even wrap your head around it. So that is how central she was. And then you move into the 2000s, and Jeffrey Epstein in Florida, she kind of helps him set up this high school pyramid scheme that is really, I think that's what is so crazy and shocking. It was like an open secret at the West Palm Beach high schools, where kind of started with Ghislaine. She got some younger girls to then start going to the high school. So she recruited the girls, who then recruited girls from high schools. Then the high school girls themselves are recruiting their friends. Hey, for $200, I'm going to take you over to my friend Jeffrey's house, and if we give him a massage, you'll get $200. And then if you bring some other girls, you can get another $200. And it's so shocking. It's almost unbelievable. But these are young girls. Again, they're kind of on the other side of the causeway, the tracks, if you will, and they're crossing over this bridge into like Disneyland, like Oz, and they've never, there's powerful men, pictures of, presidents and things on this man's house. Wow, he must really be important. And also when they're 14, 15, some of them have braces on when they go over there, and they trust this other 15, 16-year-old girl. Most of the time it was a friend. They took their friend up the staircase. It's the same story over and over. And it was just like this train that just kept going for years.